Yo, what's good, guys? So today I'm going to be coming at you for 3 tips to produce better Deathstep tracks. The reason why these tips are so important is because as an aspiring producer, I feel like you are probably trying to eventually get your music promoted on some sort of label like Hydraulic Damnation or Riot's Revenge Music or one of those things. As someone who has experience being promoted on these labels, I can tell you that it is not easy. You need to stand out from your competition and you need to make sure you're providing the best track possible. And so these tips will be very useful in achieving that for you. So first we have to define what exactly Deathstep is. So there aren't really any hard definitions to Deathstep on the internet that I can find, but the main idea of Deathstep is that it is just the dark and heavy version of dubstep. It's the equivalent of what death metal is to rock, but for dubstep. Just think of it like that. So these tips will be very useful in helping you achieve just that crisp, dark, deathstep sound that you're looking for. So let's just get right into it. So for the first tip, I've used dark scales. So when I was first getting into music production, I was under the impression, and many of you guys are probably also under this impression right now, that if you want your song to sound dark, you got to use minor. And there's just the major and the minor scale. And this could not be further from the truth. There are so many other scales out there that sound way darker than minor that you should be using instead of minor if you're trying to make something sound dark. And once I found this out, my whole world just opened up for me, and I started experimenting with all these like more unorthodox scales, and it got me amazing results that I couldn't get with minor. Examples of some of these scales are like the Locrian scale, harmonic minor, Hungarian minor, Phrygian dominant. There's so many. The pool is really endless. Just look up best heavy metal scales and you'll get some stuff to experiment with. Another thing is you can just stop using the scale altogether and just write chromatic music and try to experiment and get something really dark out of that. They all just work fine. The reasons why this is important is that there is a very big overuse of minor in dubstep. 99% of dubstep is written in minor just because of the reason I said before. So by you using any of these scales, your music automatically stands out from all the rest. And like I said, to be Deathstep, you have to sound darker than normal dubstep. So if normal dubstep's written in minor, you got to go above and beyond. And the easiest way to ensure you're going above and beyond is to just write in a darker scale than minor. So writing in a darker scale will automatically put your song amongst the darkest dubstep songs, just because most dubstep is written in minor, and it's very hard to write dark sounding music in minor when your competition is also all minor. So the next tip is to avoid sample packs. I cannot stress this enough. Sample packs are not your friend. You should not be using them. I know everyone has Googled the Code Pandorum sample pack and has downloaded it and uses his Reese bass and his machine guns and the Pan Snare 7 in every single track, and it is so bad you have to stop. So I know what you guys are thinking, like, why would I stop? It's easy, I don't have to design my own sounds, and it gets me the sound I want. Well, the reason why you have to stop is because that is the exact reason. Sample packs are easy, and taking the easy way in life is almost never correct, especially when you're trying to stand out from your competition. Do you really think that if this was such an easy way that all of your other competition has also not downloaded the Code Pandorum sample pack and is using his pan snare and his machine gun and his Reese bass in their tracks? They all are, and all your tracks will just sound like, I don't know what I'm doing, so I downloaded a sample pack. Moving on to the next point, it does make your track sound unoriginal. The amount of times I have heard Code Pandorum sample pack pan snare, I think it's snare 7, in a song is ridiculous. There's at least 50 different tracks I have heard that have that snare, and every time I hear it, I cringe so hard. Please do not use pan snare samples ever. They are not good. Pan snares are meant to be an artistic representation of your sound design ability. If you cannot design a pan snare, just use a regular snare. And the final point is that samples are commonly associated with noobs and bad producers. So the reason why they are associated like that, because some people are all like pro samples now. Samples are easy. The first thing you do as a noob is you look up samples. Everyone's going to look up samples. You don't have to learn sound design, which is very complicated, and you can just drag and drop samples in. Everyone would look up samples. Like I said, it's the easy way out. So if your track has samples in it that everyone has heard before, then they're subconsciously going to think you're a noob, even if you like produced the track perfectly, you mixed it insanely well. Like they'll automatically think it's bad just because they hear the pan snare sample or the machine gun sample or the Reese sample. So the one exception to this is if you're going to use a sample pack that is relatively unknown for something like a vocal or whatever, then that's fine. But if you're using it for artistic elements of the song, like your main basses or your pan snare, then that's not good. So you just got to cut that stuff out if you want to make your music stand out from the competition. So the third and final point is you have to make it loud. Your music has to be loud. And I know with like the Spotify algorithm or whatever and the SoundCloud algorithm and YouTube algorithm, there's a lot of controversy with this. But I'm here to just give you guys the straight facts and just dispel all these myths right away. So again, the big trend you will see with this list is that taking the easy way out is never right. Mixing quiet is very easy, whereas mixing loud is very hard. Mixing loud means that you're taking like 70 plus layers and trying to fit them all into an over-compressed and not make it sound like complete dog shit. That is like very hard. It takes many, many months and years maybe of learning and perfecting and making a bunch of shitty mixes in order to perfect that skill. Mixing quiet is you just turn down all the levels and just throw all your layers in and they stick together fine. Taking the hard way out, which in this case is mixing loud, will separate you from your competition and in a very good way because the human brain subconsciously prefers louder mixes. If you don't believe me, simply don't gain stage as you're trying to design your next bass and don't adjust levels or anything as you're going through as you put distortion or stuff like that on and see how bad of a sound you get because you just automatically place stuff on to make it sound louder instead of place stuff on to make it have a good sound. The human brain automatically prefers stuff that sounds loud. So if your mix sounds like -2 LUFS and someone else's mix sounds like -16 LUFS, your mix automatically sounds way better than theirs. Even if your track is not as creative, it still automatically sounds better. It automatically makes you stand out. And it shows listeners that you took that extra step and really cared for your track in order to put in all the work to give it a nice, clean, crisp, and loud mix. The other thing is that quiet mixes are commonly associated with noob producers. Because of the Spotify algorithm and stuff like that, people don't think that you should learn to mix loud anymore. They just try to mix quiet and they think it doesn't matter. Oh, -14 LUFS is good enough. Like, no, it's not. The reason why these algorithms exist is to make more tracks get posted onto those websites with people thinking they're good enough when they're not, or to make people buy the mastering algorithm from those websites. Because the more tracks that get posted there and the more people that buy their special mastering algorithm, the more money they make. The more people that buy plugins like Ozone and learn how to mix loud is lots of money for platforms like SoundCloud and Spotify. So that's the reason why they do that. Overall, you just got to mix loud. You got to put in the care. You got to take all the extra steps. So the final thoughts is all three of these trips are just, you got to take the extra steps. You have to avoid samples. You got to make your own sounds. You got to mix loud, and you've got to use creative skills. Overall, just take the extra steps. Put that care in your track. Show your listeners, show the promoters that you're just putting the extra effort in to really make your track one of those top few tracks that people are going to listen to on repeat multiple times a day, and you'll do fine.